Hey there, Cypher mains. I'm gonna be showing you guys some of my favorite spots to set up on Bind, Haven, and Split. For anybody that plays Cypher and is looking for some new spots, or anybody that is new to Cypher that's just looking for some good advice, I'm gonna show you some stuff that pretty much works for me consistently. So, the first one is gonna be on Bind here on B site. As Cypher, I don't often play A, but I will show you some spots. I guess they're kind of obvious, but I usually play B because you probably lock down the site better than you could on other sites. So the first thing that we're gonna do is this is one version of a strat here that I'd like to do, which is just one trap here and one trap here. This is kind of obvious. Pretty typical. A lot of ciphers do this. It is good for denying the taking of the site, and then most people kind of default to this spot, so they'll always hit this. One way you can play off of this that I often do is I'll play inside of this crate, and when somebody comes through and they hit one of these traps, you can actually bang right through these, so they won't be able to see you, and they'll come in trying to take the site, and you can just get maybe like 1 or 2 picks from complete security. Now, as far as cages and cameras go, there's one of 2 ways you can do this. So one is if you're holding this with a teammate, and if your teammate is going to go long or watch long, usually what I'll do is I'll take a camera and I'll kind of set it up here. The reason being that it's kind of out of the way from other people. It's hard for them to kind of see it. Most people do not end up picking this when they come in because their focus is usually kind of it's pretty much directed to these areas. And why I like this spot is that you can continue to play this, or you can play back here. You can pretty much play anywhere, but if your teammate's watching long from here, you actually get a really good sight of the hookah entrance. And so from here, when I'm watching, I can see how many people are crossing into hookah without even having to give my position up. That also means that this camera is a little bit less free, because if they do notice it, they're not going to see it until they're up here. So the problem I find with most people who they like to play with their cameras maybe up in here, they try to, they kind of play this invisible spot here, or maybe you might see some people putting a camera up in here somewhere, but I find that those spots they don't really reward as much intel as a spot back here does, because if I put a camera here and say I am holding the site and everyone's going A, then I can just grab my traps and I can rotate to A. But if they do end up faking A and they take B, this camera is pretty solid for a retake. Yes, you don't get the backside of the site here, but you can get a lot of information. You can see into this corner, you can see if anybody's holding this box in the corridor, you can see a good portion of hookah, so that's always a really good spot. The other strategy that you can do, say for example, if you're playing with a jet on B and they are gonna go play like in this corner on hookah with like a shoddy, you can jump up here and try and get your camera on the side here. You don't want it like this, you kind of want it like this, because then you can peek over, be long, and you can see when people are pushing up. And even if they get past this little lip here where you can't see them, you can still hear them down here if they're getting the orb, or if they're moving up. Even if they just jump, you can hear it. Now, this strat in terms of traps, this will work maybe 2-3 times at most, if you're not going to switch it up. They will start to get wise, especially if they have a Razor or a Sova. They'll start sending their bot buddies over here, or their shock darts. So what you can do to kind of try and change it up is I'll put one here on elbow. The reason being that once they've kind of caught wise to this, and they know that they're going to set themselves up for a denial by pushing the site, a lot of times they'll try and and default to hitting that elbow, and so they won't expect it because they're trying to draw the attention over here. And this also kind of protects anybody that's rotating as well. Another good trap that you can do, this one's kind of obvious. A lot of people do that, but what I like to do, if I'm gonna change it up, is I'll either put one back here and just kind of have it there just in case somebody pushes up, or you can put one right here. And the reason why I like to put one right here is because it will deny them if they try to jump through the window, but also most of the time this will get shot. But it gives you just enough time of a delay. Like if they move up and they shoot it, they have to be turning either direction. So if say you're camping back here and you've got your camera up there, or even over here and you can watch, and they try to come through, you can just get out and grab that pick real quick. There's a lot of different variations of how you can play Cypher's traps. I've seen a lot of people doing it like this, which can be good, but also it's very easy to avoid. I would definitely try and stray away from doing like the cross I see a lot of people do on here, where they put an X in front of this. That's definitely, in my opinion, a waste of your traps. But those are some really, really good spots you can take. So for Cypher on split, it's pretty much agreed upon by most Cypher mains that B is the best spot for Cypher. This is probably the best map for Cypher in my opinion. And this is definitely his zone. There's a lot of different variations of traps and cam spots that you can use to kind of trade it up or change it up and make sure that you're not becoming too predictable. But usually the first one that I'll often do is I throw this wire here. Again, this is pretty common. A lot of people do this. And then I always put one here.
That goes there.
Now this wire becomes less usable if the other team has a raise, because when they send the boombot in, it's going to get it every time. So what you could do is, I see a lot of people doing this, but I personally kind of stray away from it, because most times if they have a Sage, they're just going to wall this off and run right in, and this one kind of becomes superfluous and a little useless. But you know, every now and then maybe someone will hit it. So if I know that they have a raise, I'll set this one here still, but I'll also do this trap here as well. And then you can play this back corner and you're completely protected if they try to rush you here. As far as traps or cages go, this one's kind of common. I think a lot of people use it, but all you gotta do is just get back into this back corner, kind of aim for the middle of this piece of wood here that you see, and just throw. And that'll throw like a perfect, almost perfectly centered cage. It's a good one way that you can use. The only problem is that with this one, if they're in the back of garage, if they're all the way back here, they will still be able to see you. So definitely use that one with caution, and try not to default to this spot every time, because a lot of times people will just kind of shoot right through this, and that's not good for you. So sometimes I'll kind of play here. The other thing about playing Cypher on B split is that with all these different variations, you can do this here, you could do this here. There's a lot of different places that you can play this. You could play here, you could play here, you could wait for a trap to hit here, say if you have one right here, and play here. Sometimes I'll even wait for like a few rounds in after they've, you know, been kind of catching on to me doing this, and I'll play here, and then when I activate this trap, they'll be expecting me to be over here or over here, and so they come in trying to clear these corners, and then they don't even bother to look over here. Depending on who you're playing against, a lot of times people might look either, but if you can kind of condition them by doing that like once every 5, you know, rounds or something, then they won't be able to see you. Now, in terms of camera spots, I've definitely seen some interesting spots. Oh, looks like these got patched recently. Okay, well, I've seen some interesting spots. A lot of people will do them here. I kind of do this sometimes. It's a free camera for them to pick, but also you get a lot of intel, and it lets you know when to trigger this. But I've also kind of grown quite fond of putting my camera here. And the reason I do it here is because in order for them to tag this camera, they have to come on site. But also, when you're when you're watching through this camera, it's just close enough to garage to hear their footsteps inside. So even if you're playing all the way back here, or if you're playing back here, you can still use your ears on this camera to see if they're coming and then activate that trap. Another good one, let's say if I am going to rotate off of B and I want to keep a camera here for intel in case I need to retake the site, is I'll come up here and I'll usually just throw a camera right up there. This used to be kind of covered up, so it used to make it a lot more hidden, but it's good to have because you get to see into a lot of the really typical, the standard positions. Here, usually you'll see somebody back here, or even if they're back here, you'll still kind of be able to see part of their model, their gun, if they're playing this corner or up here, so it kind of gives you a lot. And as far as cages go, I will also kind of throw one here if I'm rotating, just in case if I'm going to retake. This becomes really useful because this is a huge one way. It goes almost all the way down to the bottom, and it allows you to take either one or two ways. You can go down here, or you can kind of go back this way. But it'll open that area up for you. As far as camera spots go, there's a couple spots I really like to use. These two in particular. I like to do this one here pretty often because you can watch this cross, and it's also good for retakes because it does give you some good information. But in terms of kind of trying to play a Cypher cam so that you can get it back, or they don't get it for free, I'll usually put one right here. The reason why I do it there is because it's equally as good for retakes, because you get a lot of information here. You can see if anybody's over here in the rafters, below rafters, screens. You can see this back corner. But the other reason is because right here, you'll grab sound, basically all the way back towards like this part of their spawn, like this part of their lobby. If they're doing anything over here, or if they're in the sewers at all, you'll hear them through that camera. So without having to peek or give your camera up for free, you can get a lot of information from even just like the slightest footstep. Now, for attacking, I don't usually have very specific spots that I like to use on attacking for any of my traps or cages. They're all kind of circumstantial. If I'm going A, I'll kind of put one here, or if I've planted the bomb, I'll put one right here like I normally do on defenders, and I'll put one of these here, and then maybe a cage up here and a cage over here. And so you can kind of shut down the entry for either of these sites and allow yourself to just watch this. But I do have a really cool camera spot that I like to use. I haven't seen a lot of people use this, so I don't know if it's pretty commonly known. But they did do a patch recently. You used to be able to put it up here on, it was kind of a glitch cam. But you can do one up here, which is not quite as good, but it does still help you a lot. So you can do this before the round starts, and it'll give you some good info. You can kind of see if anybody's watching from screens with an op or a marshal or pretty much anything. A lot of times you'll see that there's like a raise or a jet or a brim that might push up on these lower ramps to try and get a molly off, or any boom bots or anything like that. And it's good because you can just kind of collect that information real quick in the first 2 seconds of the round, grab it, and then you have your 15 seconds left. And you can use your camera again anytime after that to try and, if you're coming in here and you just want to peek this corner. So that's a really good spot to grab some intel. Alright, now for Haven, I feel like Haven is kind of an underrated Cypher map. I feel like a lot of people are unsure how to play their ciphers on this map. They feel like there's not a whole lot of business for them here, but I find in my games that there is a plethora of great spots. So I'll start off by showing you my favorite site to hold on. This is C. Now, these are in a few videos out there, but in case you haven't seen them before, I'll show you them now. So when I take C, I like to turn this into just a complete denial zone, and I use all of my utility to do it. So one thing I'll do is you can either put a trap here, or you can put a trap here. Now, the reasoning behind either of these is, say, if you're going to have somebody that's not necessarily going to be playing Garage Window very well, like they're kind of on the B, they want to gamble on another site or something, you can use this as just like a really good gathering of information. It's pretty common. I think a lot of people, you see a lot of this. So that's just very circumstantial, but for the most part, I like to do this one. And the reason I do this one, I'll tell you why. So we'll put a trap there, and we'll put a trap here. Pretty common, pretty obvious trap spots, but they do help in buying you time for what are going to be some pretty great one-ways. So for this one-way, you're just going to find this little bit of metal here, and just kind of aim right in the middle of it, and throw your cage. And that'll put it right on top of this little vent here. For the other one, you can just get right up against this corner, and just kind of pseudo aim for this. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you can just toss that right in there. I generally like to throw this one before the buy phase is down, because the barrier here will help it kind of stay closer to the outside of it, which will give you more accessibility on that one way. And then I'll put a camera right here. Now, that camera is a free camera for them. They can pick it, but the amount of information that you can gain off of it in terms of synergy with these two bits here is worth it, in my opinion. I would rather wait the 45 seconds and know that they're coming than put it, say, like here, where you still get a good view of the site for like a retake and you can still kind of hear them, but it's more crucial to me to have it here because I want to know exactly when to trigger these cages. So the first one is a great one-way, and if you play back here, they basically can't really see you. You can even play up here, but you can't really see their feet as well if you do. So this is good because you can see pretty much all the way to the back. You can see their feet. And you can use this one as well and play on top of this without going all the way on the platform.
Cage triggered.
And this is a complete invisible one-way. They can't see you if they're coming up this, and if they hit that trap, you'll know to trigger it, and that's why I like to put that trap there. A little bit further down, try to avoid putting them like here. Usually here in the middle of the hallway is good for me. Sometimes I'll put it down here if I want a little bit more of a heads up. But either way, like these one-ways here are they're easy to do. You don't even need to practice it that much, honestly. You can do it probably 100% of the time. Same with this one. And they're very, very useful. And once people start to experience that for the first time, and if you just keep doing this, most people will refrain from going on to C. Once they see that you have these amazing one-ways that you can use, then they'll try and avert from C pretty much the whole time, which allows you to kind of shut this site down as long as you're on the defender side and you have enough to buy full utility. Now, for A site with Cypher, this is probably my second favorite site to play on this, B being my least favorite. My traps are pretty standard. I don't really have anything fancy. I usually just do them right here and here. But I have seen some people doing traps here on site, like here or maybe here, and these can definitely work, but I feel like they're not as useful for denials as these two are. These are definitely to help you catch them if they're on site and you're not there. So I don't typically use these because they don't really help me out too much. But when I play these two here, I can run back to heaven and I can play those corners more safely and wait for them to hit them and come out and peek this guy or peek that guy there. As far as cages and cameras go, one cage here is pretty much always good. I try to always have one cage deployed before the buy round is over and one on hand in case I need to use it as a smoke. But if you want to throw two down, if you want to completely lock this site down, what you could do is you could put your cage there, you could put your trap here, and your trap here, and then this cage here. And this kind of works as, it's similar to Viper's one-way. It does not really give you as much of a benefit as other one-ways do, but what it can do for you is, say you are playing in Heaven, like I usually do if I play with Cypher, is if you know that they're coming from both ways and you don't want to hold these two angles while you wait for people to rotate, what I'll do is I'll preemptively trigger this, because it's just going to shut down that whole area, and they're going to be more afraid to peek out here because it's going to put them more in the open. They can't play it as safe if they have to come out. And while that's happening, you can pick off a couple of guys here and then get back over here, wait for the cage to go down, or see if they're in this opening. As far as cameras go, I really like to put one up here. This is kind of a cheap spot, and it's really easy for everybody to hit it. But again, in terms of if you're leaving the site or you need to retake it, this offers you pretty much a perfect view. I mean, you see just about everything except for hell. You can see into this corner here, you can see back here, you can see these standard spots that a lot of people might hide. If they're trying to hide behind this part of the box, you can see top of their head. So I usually use a spot like this. I mean, like, I've seen other people, you can use a camera like this to kind of watch this angle, but in my opinion, as far as cameras go, the more information that you can squeeze out of them is better. And while I might use a camera like this to peek at the beginning of the round and just see if anybody's coming in here, if they're not, I usually will grab it and kind of wait out that time and throw it back up here. Even right there is pretty good. Now, Cypher on B is kind of tricky. It's not really my favorite spot because I don't think that there's a lot of really good locations to use here, but say you have to take B as Cypher, there is a couple of things that you can do to mostly just provide support to your teammates. And a lot of people I see will do something like this. While this is good for the denial, it's also fairly obvious. Most people, when they're coming up on this, they're slow walking and they get to find this almost immediately. So it will give you that information when they shoot it, but for me, when I put a trap down, I like to try and put it in a place where they're gonna run right through it, because while shooting it does give me information, I would also rather have them hit the trap and potentially slow them down more than if they just stop and shoot it. So what I'll do is just go as far over from this, put one here, and then I put one here. This is a little too high, but you get the idea. The reason I do these might be obvious, but when they come in, they're gonna, they're gonna try and peek these angles here, and they're gonna be real quiet about it, but they're not gonna be close enough to see these. So as soon as they come in and they try to clear these sites, they're gonna hit one of these. Either way, no matter which way they go, they're gonna hit one of these. Sure, they could come in and plant right here, but either way, they're gonna want to try to clear this site. Which is why normally I'll just throw a cage here. I'll keep the other cage on me. And as far as cameras go, you can kind of try and put one up here. This will help kind of peek into mid. It'll also give you some info down here and on these corners. These will be kind of blind to you, but hopefully if you place your traps well, you'll be able to gather enough information for the whole site. And that's pretty much the video. I know that these nothing's really new from these. I've either picked these up myself or I've learned them from other people, but I just wanted to show you guys some of my favorite spots. And if you have any advice, or if you have some criticism, or maybe you have a spot that you think is better, feel free to let me know. I'd love to learn and find out as much as I can. I'm always looking to improve my Cypher game. And yeah, that's it. GG everybody. See you in game.